Hello and welcome to the final video in my Tony Hawk's Pro Skater retrospective. We've finally made it, and it's all been building up to this, the release of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, which is now available on the PS4, Xbox One and PC. I was so hyped for this game coming out that I even pre-ordered the collector's edition of it, so now you can see an actual skateboard deck in the background of all of these videos. But after all of that anticipation, is this game actually any good? Let's take a look. As I just mentioned, Pro Skater 1 and 2 was developed by Vicarious Visions, a name you might recognise after their work on the Crash Bandicoot N. Sane trilogy, which was a damn fine remake of the PS1 trilogy of Crash games. But this isn't the only thing making them the perfect fit for remaking the Tony Hawk games, because they also actually already have hands-on experience with the series. Vicarious Visions were the team responsible for developing the vast majority of the portable entries in the series, all the way from Pro Skater 2 on the Game Boy Advance to Proving Ground on the DS. Basically, on paper, Vicarious Visions are the next best team you'd want working on a Pro Skater remake outside of bringing Neversoft back from the dead. Plus, as a support team, you also have Beanox working on elements of the game, and after their work on Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, I think they've earned a lot of respect as developers. So here we are with the absolute dream team working on the game, and let me tell you, they didn't disappoint. The production value of the more recent Tony Hawk games has been seriously lacking. Certain games like Pro Skater HD didn't even feature a live-action opening, and others like Pro Skater 5 had clunky and unintuitive menus. And I'm happy to report that the attention to detail in these key areas is back in full force. We have this amazing live-action opening which starts with footage being played in standard definition as it slowly stretches out and becomes HD, just as the classic Rage Against the Machine tune Guerrilla Radio kicks in, and we see the skaters from the original two games, as well as a ton of newer ones, performing insane tricks. After that, we have a title screen with an animated background featuring Tony Hawk skating through some different locales from the game, while Pretending I'm Superman by Goldfinger blasts out. What an amazing introduction to the game. We've got the music that we all remember, we've got new live action footage showing that all of the skaters have still got it, and finally, we've got a developer that actually cares about the series and is giving us an experience more like the older games. Before starting the game properly, we get to play a short tutorial which teaches us the basics of performing tricks and stringing together combos. And for the first time since Pro Skater 3, the tutorial seems to have had a lot of thought put into it, being easy to understand and yet detailed enough to remind veterans of the series how to play the game, as well as introduce the game to newcomers. Plus, it features the voice of Tony Hawk himself, who guides us through each of the sections, which adds a ton of personality to the experience. The tutorial doesn't teach absolutely everything the game has to offer. For example, it doesn't talk about grind, lip and manual extensions, but that's fine because it encourages experimentation to discover some of the more advanced stuff for yourself. The main menu then appears, and we actually have a ton of options to choose from here, to the point where at first it's a little bit overwhelming. We have Skate Tours, Multiplayer, Creator Park, Creator Skater, a skate shop, challenges, a profile page, and tons of smaller things to access, like a party system for online play. Each of these menus also have several sub-menus, and it's a bit much to begin with. But after a while of playing the game, it actually works very well, and you can't really blame the game for having such an in-depth menu when it offers this much content. Before we get into all of that side content though, let's talk about what actually matters here, the career mode. The career mode from previous games has now been renamed Skate Tours, but it's functionally exactly the same. You play through levels from Pro Skater 1 and 2, unlocking more levels as you complete a number of goals within the initial set of levels you have access to, and you finish the game when you've reached the final competition level and got a medal. Rather than mixing all of the levels together in one big playlist, the levels are separated into two menus, one for Pro Skater 1 and one for Pro Skater 2. The levels within those menus are in the exact same order they were found in the original games too, so everything is unlocked in the exact same order as it was in the original games. A key difference in structure here though is that 5 new goals have been added to the Pro Skater 1 levels to bring them more in line with the levels from Pro Skater 2. Pro Skater HD did this exact same thing, but obviously that only featured a small number of levels from each game, whereas Pro Skater 1 and 2 features every level from both games. It's worth pointing out as well that the new objectives in the Pro Skater 1 levels here are different from the new goals they added in Pro Skater HD, so it feels like a dramatically different experience to the previous remake. One of the big things that I wanted from this remake was for it to bring the levels from the first game up to the standard of the ones from Pro Skater 2, and I feel like it 100% achieved this. Another way it does this is by making a new universal collectible that you find across every level from both games. The original Pro Skater 2 had a cash collectible which incentivized exploration, and I always said with the previous remakes that I wish this would have been implemented into the first game's levels. Again, to its credit, Pro Skater HD did actually do this, but again, there were so few levels in that game that it still felt a little bit underwhelming. Here in the new remake though, we don't have cash collectibles in any of the levels, and instead find stat point collectibles hidden in them, which actually is the exact same way that Pro Skater 3 handled its collectibles. What I will say about this that's actually a little bit disappointing is that there's far fewer stat point collectibles than there was cash collectibles. So some of the secret areas that would have rewarded you with cash no longer have anything there, which is a bit weird, but easily overlooked. Overall, I'm glad the two games have been given this universal progression structure where you collect the same things across both games, and I like how in order to max out your stats, you need to find all of the collectibles across both games. This is something that the first remake of the original games, Pro Skater 2X, actually kinda messed up, because in order to max out your stats in that game, you only needed to 100% Pro Skater 2, which ended up making the Pro Skater 1 levels feel kinda tacked on. I think we've gone on long enough about the structure of the game though, so let's talk about the actual gameplay. Well, it's absolutely incredible. What else is there to say? What they've effectively done here is taken the game with the most expansive moveset without it adding in pointless gimmicks, which is Pro Skater 4, added in a couple of things from the later games like the wall plant which is from Underground, and then implemented all of that into Pro Skater 1 and 2. The result is the absolute definitive way to experience these games. You can do flatland, you can spine transfer and acid drop, you can manual, revert, do trick extensions, there's a proper lip trick system, and most importantly, it feels responsive as heck. The controls here easily match the quality that we saw in the very best Neversoft games. You'll never drop inputs, there's never frame dropping, and if you bail or mess up a trick, you can be damn sure that it's your own fault and not the game's. This is such an important detail about this game because we've seen how it can go when this is messed up. Look no further than Pro Skater HD to see how the physics, animations and general feel of the controls feel so wrong. For example, in that game I constantly failed to continue combos after doing a revert into a manual, but in the new game this didn't happen a single time. It's that good. And let's talk about these graphics. Sweet mercy. This is easily the best looking Tony Hawk game we've ever seen, hands down, no contest. There's loads of interactive and dynamic elements like crashing through glass, birds flying off of rails when you get close, and even the cars driving around now have much more cartoony animations as they skid around corners, making everything feel so full of character. As I said before, every single level from the original two games return here, but instead of just straight up making the graphics better, they instead slightly redesigned the themes for each level. For example, Mall is now abandoned and falling apart. School 1 is now much more colourful and more clearly belongs to students of a younger age. Venice Beach is now covered in a golden glow from the sunset and the graffiti is much more abundant and colourful. The hangar is probably my favourite redesign, now being this shrine to the legacy of the Tony Hawk games, featuring not only the posters for all of the good mainline entries in the series, but it even also features the Neversoft logo, which is honestly such a nice way of honouring the original developers and showing respect to them for creating these amazing games in the first place. You just don't ever normally see that sort of thing in remakes. At best it's normally just a thank you in the credits. But here, one of the most iconic levels is a massive interactive thank you, and it's just awesome. One aspect of the game I didn't think I liked at first was the way that rather than you bailing and having an animation of getting back on the board, you now bail and there's this glitch effect that covers your skater before disappearing and revealing them to be back on the board. I kinda thought that this was a way of cutting corners because maybe they couldn't get the animation to look good of the skaters recovering from a bail, but I actually really don't mind this new effect they use. In some cases, what's interesting about it is that you can keep some of your momentum from the bail as you continue skating, so the pace is actually improved by this. Plus, a really nice little detail I love is how the music goes all tinny and staticky when you bail, as if the soundscape is reacting to your movement. It just adds another little layer to make the game feel even more reactive and dynamic. In terms of the career mode here, I really can't fault the game at all. Like, it's literally the perfect remake of the original Pro Skater 1 and 2's careers. The one minor nitpick is that the cash collectibles in the original Pro Skater 2 were a bit more numerous and therefore sort of incentivized exploration a bit more, but that really is clutching at straws for something to complain about. I guess another thing some people might not like is that the soundtrack isn't the exact same one returning from Pro Skater 1 or 2, and instead it features quite a few returning songs as well as a ton of new ones. But honestly, all of the classic and most memorable tracks are here, and some of the new ones are actually really good and fit right in with the old guard. So I don't think this is a valid criticism at all, and I would even go as far as to say that the soundtrack here is better than the originals. A more legitimate complaint is that the replay value of the career mode has been dramatically affected by the fact that once you've done the goals, they're registered as completed across every skater, not just the one you finished it as. This means if you play the career mode again as a different skater, there's gonna be no goals, and instead you're just searching for stat point collectibles because that's the only element of the career mode that isn't carried over to every character. If I'm honest, I think this was a bit of a misstep. Once you've finished the game one time, it's kinda just done, and you can't play it again from scratch. While this is a bit disappointing, they did add in some stuff to sort of get around this. For example, just like in Pro Skater 3, the stat point collectibles are placed in different areas depending on your skater type. There's also Vicarious Visions logos hidden in every level, and there's also these alien plushies to find in every level too. Again though, once you've found the Vicarious Visions logos and the aliens, you've got them as every character, so this doesn't give you any long-term replay value. The main thing that makes up for the lack of replay value is this third option on the Skate Tours menu. Obviously the Pro Skater 1 and Pro Skater 2 options here are the career modes, but this new option actually contains free skate and single session, as well as a third brand new game mode called Speedrun. This is where the standard career mode goals can actually be replayed, but the spin on it is that rather than having a 2-minute timer, you instead have a timer that counts up, and you need to do every single goal in the level as quickly as possible. And then your best time is uploaded to the online leaderboards. This is a great mode because not only does it enable us to access the goals after finishing the career modes, but also by having this new take on the goals where everything has to be done in one run, it actually ends up changing the way you think about the goals quite a lot. It's like rather than thinking about one goal at a time, you instead need to think about it one area at a time and clear every goal in a particular place before you move on to a new area. On top of this, the single session mode now has a lot more worth than it ever has in any of the previous games, and this is because your best scores can be uploaded to the online leaderboards. As well as that though, the menu containing the free skate single session and speedrun modes actually has a completion percentage tied to it, and if you're a perfectionist, you're gonna want that to say 100%. This slight change honestly makes playing these levels in these modes a lot more enjoyable because you feel like you're actually getting something out of them. Whereas before, it always felt a little bit tacked on, so this is an awesome change. But if you think that's all of the side content the game has to throw at you, you're wrong, because there's actually quite a lot more to talk about, including the new Creator Skater. The Creator Skater here is a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. In a lot of ways, it's clearly the best version of this mode ever made. There's so many sets of clothes, decks, wheels, grip tapes, trucks, and everything in between. In terms of the amount of content the game offers, it blows the others out of the water, and honestly, it's pretty impressive. The big thing I was extremely disappointed by in this area though, is the fact that you can't go in and fine-tune facial details to make the skaters actually look like you. Once again, you're locked to choosing preset faces, and this kinda sucks when we've all played stuff with much more detailed character creation tools. There's also a really weird lack of specific customization elements. Like for example, you can't choose a body type, you can't choose your height and weight, and even the hairstyles are kinda lacking, and I'm not just saying that because there's not a buzz cut either. You also can't do more in-depth stuff like separate the backpack from certain t-shirts because it's like they come as one item, which is really weird. It's like in a hell of a lot of ways, the amount of customization you had was better in games like Pro Skater 4. And that's such a shame because I expected this to be an area where 1 and 2 blew the older games away. Still though, it could be a lot worse. We could have no Creator Skater like in Pro Skater HD, or we could have a really nerfed version of it like we saw in Pro Skater 5. But enough about that. I know what you're all waiting for. You're waiting for the final round of Created Skater or Realer Skater. So let's do this. Which one of these two images is the real version of me and which is the in-game version? With this being the first HD game we've done this with, I imagine this'll be extra difficult. But still, with this being the last round of Created Skater or Realer Skater, I feel like I need to make it even harder. So here's a side-by-side of every single Creator Skater we've made in this marathon. Can you tell out of all of these which is the real me? Also down in the comments, let me know which version you think looks the overall best, because despite the new remake having the best graphics, I don't think it had the best customization tools in a lot of areas. Of course, another huge returning mode from the older games is Creator Park, and I'm gonna be honest, this has never particularly been my jam. I always go into level editors like this with tons of ideas, but then I have no idea how to make them all come together using the tools available to me. But having said that, this is a damn good version of Creator Park. Obviously the main attraction with this version is that you can actually upload your creations and play other people's, which technically gives the game infinite levels to play through. The issue is that the created parks always look so clearly made in Creator Park. I feel like there's not enough options to decorate your levels with enough depth to make them have their own identity, and they kind of all just visually blend together, which is a shame. A bigger problem is that I would actually say that this isn't the best version of Creator Park that we've seen, and the game that has it beat in this area, unexpectedly, is Pro Skater 5. Yep, there's a way in which Pro Skater 5 is better than 1 and 2. I didn't see that coming. The fact that in Pro Skater 5 you could place actual level goals like combo letters, skate letters, a hidden tape and a hidden DVD made it so you could create actual levels rather than just parks to mess about in. But on top of that, you could choose different level templates which resembled the layout of actual levels featured in the game. And you could also choose a level size too, all of which are features not present in Pro Skater 1 and 2. In terms of the actual tools available though, yeah, 1 and 2 is probably better. But there wasn't really anything that made it stand out too much against any of the older creator parks in my opinion. Maybe I've just not gone deep enough into it, or maybe it's just me being rubbish at using the creation tools, but I was actually quite underwhelmed with this. I mean, you can't even place gaps in your parks, which is something you could do all the way back in the original Pro Skater 2. It's really weird how stripped back this feels, while also being the most in-depth at the same time. Speaking of being underwhelmed, let's now move on and talk about the next area of the game, which is the online mode. First off, before we get into the negatives, the online mode which is present here is great. I was having a blast playing with groups of other people competing in graffiti, trick attack, score challenge, combo challenge and combo mambo, and honestly, this is probably where I'm gonna get the most time out of the game because this is easily the most competitive mode. I love how you enter a lobby where you and 7 other people are free skating, then after a short timer, you're randomly assigned a game mode and compete before seamlessly re-entering free skate together. It makes it so that there's no downtime and there's no menus to navigate interrupting the flow of the game. I also love how the game randomly selects a new level after you've played through each of the 5 game modes featured in the online mode. This keeps things fast-paced and interesting. I do kinda wish that when the game changed levels, you had the option to enter a new lobby so that you're playing with different people, but that's really just a minor thing. My main issue here is that this is the only online game mode. Considering the scope of what an online Tony Hawk game could implement, I find this absolutely bizarre. Like, why isn't there team modes where you and a teammate compete against other teams in trick attack or graffiti? Why can't you choose to exclusively play certain game modes rather than being forced to play stuff like score challenge and combo challenge if you don't like them? Why can't you choose which map you want to play on? Why isn't there a private match mode where it's just you and your party playing together? Why are horse and tag not available in the online mode despite being in the split screen mode? And speaking of which, why can't we go online while also being in split screen mode? There's so many obvious oversights here, but I can only assume that they'll be updating this in the future, because at the moment the only online mode is called Quick Play, which surely implies that there's going to be a more filtered way of playing on top of that at some point. Another thing I found strange is that there's a casual mode and a ranked mode to choose from for online games, but the ranked mode doesn't appear to be very different to the casual mode. It's not like you get more rewards for the ranked mode, and it's not even like it's locked out to begin with or anything. It's just like you have to self-assess whether you feel like a good player or not, and it's just a bit weird. I kinda feel like maybe the game should have had a matchmaking system based on your online skill and ditched the ranked and casual options entirely. But it's not that big of a deal, just a bit strange. A returning feature from some of the older games that was absent in some of the more recent games is the split screen mode. Here you not only have access to all of the online game modes that I just mentioned, but also horse and tag. So that's really awesome, and I'm glad to see this return considering it wasn't in Pro Skater HD or 5. One thing that I will say though is that they kinda ruined tag. I would have preferred it to have worked like King of the Hill from Pro Skater 3. where it's a race to get a crown in the middle of the level, and then whoever has the crown gets the speed dramatically reduced, making it so that the player who doesn't have the crown can easily catch up. With the tag mode featured in this game though, whoever's randomly designated as being it goes at the same speed as everybody else, so it becomes way too difficult catching up to anybody to actually hit them. Hopefully at some point they're going to update this, or at least add in a King of the Hill mode instead, because I think that would work a lot better. The final thing I'm going to talk about is the brand new challenge system, whereby doing stuff in any mode of the game, you'll be able to complete little objectives and be rewarded with cash and experience points. These challenges range from really easy things like simply creating a skater, to much more detailed things like performing a high scoring combo across a specific gap in a specific level without doing a certain type of trick. I think this challenge system is amazing, and to be honest, this is probably the thing in the game that gives the greatest sense of progression. The experience points you earn by completing these challenges level you up, and by reaching certain levels you gain access to new things in the shop. And then the money you earn by also doing these challenges can then be spent in the shop, so everything kinda comes full circle. Plus, certain challenges will also reward you with new decks, wheels, clothes, and even characters. So in these cases, it's like you're receiving rewards on top of rewards. The shop system has also been much expanded from the previous versions we've seen in the older games, offering way more cosmetic items than what's ever been seen in the series so far, and it's just a great inclusion to make leveling up and completing challenges feel even more rewarding. Plus, something absolutely incredible about this shop system is that, can you believe it, it isn't a daily rotating Fortnite style store, and you can actually just buy whatever you want without feeling pressure from time restrictions. And you know what else? There's no premium currency to spend real money on. Everything is unlocked in the actual game. How goddamn insane is that for a game released in 2020 that in theory would be so easy to have shoved horrible business practices into? Whether the game gets updated with these shady, terrible things later down the line, we'll have to wait and see. But with the game clearly not being designed with this in mind, I'm hoping that this won't happen. But then again, this is Activision, and they did it with Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. But then again, they didn't do it with Sekiro, the Insane Trilogy, or the Reignited Trilogy, so there's still hope. Anyway, I think that about covers everything. And while I feel like I've been quite harsh on the game with a lot of my criticism, I still goddamn love it. It has flaws in almost every area, like with the career mode not being replayable, as well as being a bit too easy and not having a hard difficulty like Pro Skater HD had. There's a lack of secret unlockable levels and characters, which is weird considering how much of that stuff was in the older games. The Creator Skater is a bit underwhelming by today's standards, the Creator Park isn't as good as Pro Skater 5's in my opinion, and the online needs a serious upgrade to include some really obvious features that are lacking. I'm really hoping that the game will receive constant updates and support from the developers for a long time, because all of these issues would be easy to fix in theory. Not only could these updates fix the problems that I've mentioned throughout this review though, but they could also add in more content, like more levels, more characters, more customization options, and maybe even add in a Pro Skater 3 pack. Even if this never happens though, and the game remains as it is forever, it's still easily one of the best Pro Skater games. The controls are spot on, the graphics are incredible, the online is populated and functional, and the new ranking system, as well as the shop, is awesome. And, above all else, it's just so fun. I'm putting Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 in second place in my series ranking. However, with updates fixing some of the issues I mentioned earlier, as well as adding in new content, by the end of the game's life cycle, it could easily be moved to first place. Really, the only reason I think Pro Skater 3 is better right now is because it feels more consistent across all of its modes, and it has very few flaws. Plus, its levels are some of the best in the entire series, being really dynamic and at times feeling really alive with all of the NPCs featured in it. It also offers far more secret characters, levels and cheats, and because of that, it's far more replayable. Also, the fact that when you've done all of the goals as one skater, you can then replay it as all of the other skaters, is much better in my opinion. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is easily, by a huge margin, the best way of experiencing the original two games though. And it's the best remake the series has ever seen, which is pretty impressive considering how much I liked Pro Skater 2X. I wish the goals in the career mode weren't shared across all of the skaters, and the side content like the Creator Skater, Creator Park and the online gameplay needs a lot of adjusting and updating, but considering the game seems to have sold very well and is doing so well critically too, I expect we'll see quite a few updates and potentially even DLC packs. I would recommend this to practically anyone. If you've never played a Tony Hawk game before and you think you might be interested in it based on the gameplay you've seen, I urge you to give it a shot. And if you're a fan of the older games in the series, definitely pick this up because it's a true return to form and is easily one of the best games in the entire series. It's a bit of a shame that some of the content is locked behind the Digital Deluxe Edition, and there is also currently one microtransaction for some cosmetics. But at the moment, that's all the extra purchases you can make. I hope it stays like that and they don't add in any more microtransactions or a premium currency or anything like that. But if they were to release actual DLC like a Pro Skater 3 pack or a level pack featuring levels from other games in the series, I would be happy to purchase that. I just hope Activision don't get greedy and make the game feel like a cash grab, because honestly, I feel like the Pro Skater name should be above that. And that's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, and with that, the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater marathon as a whole is done and dusted. I've reviewed every single game in the series that uses the Pro Skater name. That is outside of all of the different ports, but to go into those would just take forever. Maybe one day in the future I'll go into some of the other games in the series like Underground or American Wasteland, but for now, I think I'm gonna give Tony Hawk a rest for a bit. But what a ride it's been. There's only been one bad game in the entire series, which I think is really a testament to how good the Tony Hawk games are. Even the weaker entries were still a ton of fun, and it's been a blast returning to all of the ones I've played before with a critical eye, as well as playing some of them for the first time ever. But anyway, I guess it's time to wrap things up. So, if you enjoyed this video and the series in general, give it a like, subscribe to see more stuff like this coming soon, and leave a comment down below letting me know if you've played Pro Skater 1 and 2 and what you're thinking of it so far. And, until next time, bye!